Systems Alliance, please welcome Amy Rubino.
Thank you. So as Catherine said, I'm going to talk about usability testing and how you can use that to validate your products. I've been working in the field of design for about 15 years, and I've worked with a variety of clients, and I have a master's from University of Baltimore in Interaction Design and Information Architecture, so if anyone's interested in learning about that program, I could speak to that also. So I'm going to tell you what I mean by usability and what I mean about usability testing. Talk about, maybe you guys can offer me some insight on where you think in the lean startup process you could integrate this. We're going to do a little bit of a demo. We're going to bring someone up and we'll try it. Reed has kindly volunteered. And I'm going to share some resources. So who has heard the term usability in the context of web and apps? Okay, a few people, great. So this is called the User Experience Honeycomb, and Peter Morville, who's known as kind of founder of information architecture, or kind of how your information is organized on your site and app, he put this together to show all the different qualities that form that experience people have. And making something usable is one component of that. So on every project, we need to figure out what we're going to prioritize and how usability fits into that. To get a little bit more granular, usability is all about creating products that are easy to use. So when they're easy to use, they're going to require less mental effort. There's going to be less risk of people making mistakes. If they do make mistakes, they can recover more quickly. They can do it faster. They can just figure things out more quickly. So this is a coffee pot. How usable do you think this is? It's not very, right? So this is, in the world of usability, this is called the coffee pot for masochists. And what we're trying to do when we're creating good experiences that are usable is avoid making products like this. So the challenge is, though, that not everything we create is that easy. You can tell it's not going to work. You can't always tell it's going to burn someone, hurt someone, be problematic. So what we need to do is base decisions on human behavior. And that human behavior is on the people who we want to target. And in this field, we call them users. So these users are real people, and hopefully you've kind of defined who your target audiences are. And hopefully they're not all directly affiliated with your company, because I think, as earlier Joe and Karen said, we're like insiders. When we're working on a project, we are really passionate about what we're doing, we're really knowledgeable, and we're going to have some ideas on how we anticipate people are going to use it. But if you put your product in front of people and start watching them, you're going to realize they're just going to use it any way they want, and they may try to complete tasks differently than you anticipated. And that's good, because if you learn, then you can make adjustments and better support them. And an example of you're not like your users is, I don't know if you heard about Google Buzz, which I'm not sure if that's even around anymore. But so they tested that with 20,000 Google employees, and they thought, oh, this is good to go, this is great. Well, they launched it, and the challenge was that it was like in this gated community of Google employees. Once people in real life started using it, there's this feature where it's sharing all your information with everyone you email. Well, people you email aren't always people you want to share your whole life with. So it was a problem. The people they tested it with were insiders. They really should have done some usability testing with people outside of Google. So you're probably doing some things now, like surveys, focus groups, looking at web analytics. And these are great ways to learn about your users. Web analytics can also tell you a little bit about their behavior, but you don't have that opportunity to ask follow-up questions. So you want to get out there and talk to your users. You want to try to observe them in their real environment. In our field, we call that contextual inquiry. So you could just shadow someone, watch them, how they would use their iPhone for an hour using different apps. And then there's usability testing, and that's where we're watching people use a specific product. Who has heard about usability testing before today? Okay, great. It's good to see that people know what it is. So how I'm going to define it is based on Steve Krug. He's a really great advocate for usability testing and encouraging everyone to do it. In his book, Don't Make Me Think, he says, if you want to know whether your software is easy enough to use, watch some people while they try to use it, note where they run into trouble, fix it, and test it again. So I bolded some things here. The key thing is you want to watch people and learn from them. And then you want to iterate. You want to change your design and then put it back in front of them. We really should be thinking that no design is final. Things are, people are going to want things to be different. Times are going to change. We need to constantly put products in front of people and adjust them. So this is a traditional usability testing process. You're going to develop a plan. You're going to put together the criteria for your participants. You're going to find participants. You're going to conduct your sessions. You're going to put together a findings and recommendations report. But this is a really good starting point if you're new, but there's a lot of flexibility. And we're going to talk a little later on about how we can do a more lean model that may better fit into your work schedule. So for those of you who are new, sorry, this is really pixelated. This is the traditional usability testing session. This person on the right is what we call the moderator. So they're going to come prepared with some specific tasks they're going to ask someone to do on the site. They might say, like, show me how you would download the app. And you would ask the participant in the center to talk out loud. We call it Think Out Loud protocol. We want to know what they're looking at, what they're thinking, what they're doing, so we get a little insight into their thought process. And over here we have someone who's watching it. They could be in another room with streaming video. You see there's a video camera. They could watch it later. They could just be sitting quietly in the back of the room. But Observer is a really great place for your stakeholders, your designers, and your developers, because there's nothing more powerful than working on this project, being really proud of it, and then watching people stumble. As a user experience designer, I can say I think this is going to be problematic, but when you hear people, with problems, that makes a big impact. Like a project I was on, the goal was to get a process online and make it so people would not need to call with questions. Well, we had stakeholders watching as we did usability testing. Almost every participant said, I'm confused, I would call. So we realized then we needed to make changes, and thankfully the stakeholders were willing to increase the budget, extend the time frame, and make the fixes. When we tested the second time, we had a much better success rate, and we felt more comfortable with what we were going to launch. So I was talking about in-person usability testing. This image shows you it doesn't have to be on a computer. If you have an app, you can do it on a phone. They make these things called a sleigh that you can set the phone on while someone's testing. And the pros of this is that you're going to hear and see people's reactions, and this is really powerful. You can often record the conversation in their click path if you want to go back later and get a closer look, and you can involve other members of your team. The cons, though, are that you are going to have to travel to your participants, or they're going to have to travel to you, which might limit people in your geographic region. So another option is remote usability testing. It's kind of hard to see this image, but what I'm trying to show is this researcher or moderator is in one country, the participant's in another country. They're on the phone, they're using some kind of screen sharing software. They could be using Skype, GoToMeeting, Adobe Connect. And so you're conversing, you can hear what people are saying, and they're sharing their screen with you, so you can still see where they're clicking. And the benefit of this is that there's no traveling involved. It's a little easier to recruit participants because they don't have to leave their home or work. You can go beyond your local region. You can still record the conversation in ClickPath, and you can still involve your stakeholders. They could be, again, watching video or the streaming of it. But you don't get to see their reactions unless they have a really sweet setup where they have a web camera. So you can't always have that. But you need to weigh the pros and cons. Another option is recent years, there's a bunch of services, and I know Gus recently used usertesting.com, there's Loop 11. So there's different ways that you make it almost like an online survey. So you put together your task, your prototype. These services can often recruit people for you, and people go through and complete the task at their own pace, at their own time, and it gives you access to more people outside of your region. The challenge is, though, you can't always ask follow-up questions, like, tell me a little bit more about that. Why did you do that? You don't get to necessarily hear them think out loud. Sometimes, again, if they have like a webcam, it can record audio and their facial expressions, but that's something you miss out. So you may be wondering, what can you test? You can obviously test your final product, but you can also test your digital prototypes. Like Karen was talking about the wireframes. You can have a static version of those, a clickable version, even paper prototypes. I've had really good success with that. This is an image kind of showing a paper prototype where you just show people sketches or printouts, ask them where they go, they click on the paper, you switch out to the other screen. And it's great because you haven't invested your time into the design and development. You're just at that wireframe kind of concept place. So some things you want to make sure you do during usability testing is you want to test the site, the app, the product, not the participants. So a great example I have, and Abby may have heard this in class, so Michael Summers is a user researcher, and he asked a participant how they would get to a website. And the participant said, I would open Goggle and search for the website. Well, without skipping a beat, my goal is like, okay, open Goggle and show me what you do. Because we're testing the product. We're not testing the participant. This is not the time to critique them, judge them. You also want to make sure that if the type of testing you're doing is you want to see them complete tasks, you want to give them tasks that they can complete and that you can note the success. Because then you can take a look at the end and see if 3 of 5 participants could not complete a task. You might want to rethink how you're supporting people in doing that. You want to try to follow up with open-ended questions. So you don't want to say, or ask things they're going to answer yes or no, like, would you click that button? You want to say, what would you do next? You want to continue to get that conversation going. And I strongly recommend that you compensate your participants. People are doing a really valuable thing by giving you some feedback, so you want to compensate them. Cash and gift cards are good forms of compensation. Some things you don't want to do is you don't want to set people up for failure and give them tasks that you know can't be completed. If there's things that you need to have people complete and your prototype's not there, then you need to fix it. Don't test it yet. You want to try not to guide them and answer questions. You try to answer questions at the end, just explain, I'll try to answer that later. And you don't want to take it personally. I've been on sessions where I heard something like this, do you really think people will use this? And I thought that was a great quote, and I shared it with our stakeholders and said, hey, this might be usable, it might meet our needs, but is it supporting our users? Is it providing value where they're actually going to come back and continue to use it? So we needed to kind of continue to talk about what value we were bringing our users. So if you're not convinced that there's value in usability testing, I want to give you a few things to consider. It's going to help you reduce your costs. Joe gave a really great example. But IEEE did some research, and they found that once a piece of software gets into the field, the cost of fixing an error can be 100 times as high as it was during the development stage. So if we look at this, if you could spend $1 early on or spend $100 later, which would you rather do? And we all know that those small fixes are never just $1. Those are a couple $100 to $1,000 to begin with. You also have the opportunity to increase your revenue and increase your retention of customers. We work, where I work, we work with higher ed clients, and for them, a big win is increasing applications. So we worked with a client where we followed a user-centered design process, we did some usability testing, we made adjustments, and when that new site went live, they saw a 375% increase in qualified applicants. So that was a really big win. You also can improve the effectiveness, and that's going to support people in having less likely to have user error, increase their efficiency. And you see this woman's happy. In this world of social media, would you rather people tweeted something positive or something negative about your site? I like to think that you only have one chance to make a positive impression with your website. If you go launch with something that's not going to support people, they may not return, and their friends and family may never come because they've already kind of put the word out there. So usability testing and lean startup. I'm starting to read this book, so I'm still kind of new to usability. I'm still new to lean startup, but I wanted to get a feel for where you guys think you could integrate this into your process. Any thoughts? Yeah.
Well, bearing in mind that any user testing is better than no user testing.
Yes.
The remote testing seems to be attractive, and either the paper prototype or a digital prototype is an important thing to do.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage you at any point where you have some sketches, whether it's digital or paper, and it supports some tasks you want to see if people can do, then get it in front of people. Like you said, testing with a few people is better than not testing at all. So I showed you this traditional process earlier, and there's lots of flexibility. So what I would propose is a lean process where you develop a test plan, you put together your prototype, your questions, you find participants. They don't have to be your exact target audience. You just need to get it in front of people who aren't on your team. Do your sessions, debrief, and decide on your changes and move forward. So this example I'm showing here is in a coffee shop. You have the opportunity to do some guerrilla usability testing where you just go to a public place. You either have your prototype on paper, on your laptop, or if it's live, people can view it on their laptop or device. And you get to see and hear the reactions. And if you need to see it on different devices, that's an opportunity too to see how it might be on Android, an iPhone, a Nokia. You just need to make sure that you get the manager's approval if they care at all. And you have to realize that these customers may not be your target audience. You might need to kind of grade on a curve. They may not have some of the knowledge you would expect your users to have. And it may be a little harder for your stakeholders to get involved. It might be a little creepy to have like 3 people in a coffee shop surrounding, a customer. So, but this is a really good starting point. Jacob Nielsen, who is a leader in user research, he's had this quote: "The best results come from testing no more than 5 users and running as many small tests as you can afford." And this has become known as discount usability. He found that testing something with just 5 people, you can find about 80% of the usability issues. But if you test with 10 people, you can find about 90%. So you can start with that discount usability testing, and once you kind of see the value, maybe start budgeting to do more and more frequently. So I wanted to do a little demo, if Reed doesn't mind coming up. Gus has kindly offered to let us do something, or do a little test with his website, NestPix. So with a usability test, you really want to make it clear to the participant in the beginning is that we're not testing you, we're testing this site. We want to learn if it's going to support people like you. So what I'd like you to do is try to complete these tasks the best you can, and if you could talk out loud, tell me what you're thinking, you're doing, what you're seeing, and if you want to stop at any time, you can. So let's say that, do you have any familiarity with this site?
No.
Okay, great. Why don't you show me, Reed, how you would find out what this app offers?
Well, I guess I'd start by reading the text right here. Share your own designs with the world. So, I don't know, online version of Cribs, maybe? Probably, I presume I'm on the home page, so maybe go to, about, doesn't really look like it's going to tell me anything really about the service itself. Feedback might. But, okay. So that's actually a feedback form as opposed to a place that I can view feedback. So that wasn't quite what I wanted. Press, presumably, or details or features up here on the right. So that's nice that I don't have to go back to the home page in order to get there. So to create project. So basically, here's where I seem to be finding that information.
Okay. And do you want to just let me know when you feel like you found what you...
Well, I think I've got the basic idea at this point. It's a place where you can essentially upload photos about your home or maybe homes that you're designing, share them with other folks, and comment on other people's and something like that. So that's about as far as I would get if I were doing this personally.
Can you show me where you would go if you wanted to start getting emails from this company?
I would probably get a sign up.
It's a little slow.
So, sign up.
And I won't make you.
You want?
Yeah. So thank you. So I hope that gives everyone just a taste. Thanks, Reed.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Reed, finish it up.
He needs the customers.
I promised to visit. It's a data point.
Thank you.
So thanks, Reed. Hopefully that kind of gives you a taste of, I know it's a very short example.
And Gus, did you think that was valuable?
Yeah, the about sort of like get that idea of what is this really all about, getting that to stand out more.
Yeah.
I like the online version of Cribs. I might adopt that in my mind. Yeah, so.
Thanks.
I thought the sort of almost 2 separate navigation systems was a little confusing. You know, I almost didn't see the choices in the upper right initially.
And it's always interesting too to watch people complete forms because people will complete forms differently than you, and you'll find there's more than one way of doing a form. So that's a great task to always ask people.
On your own computer, I mean, my thing, it has autofill.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you want to use something on a computer that's you don't use it on people's own computers, right?
Well, it depends. You could do it on there and see, how quickly they can do it with autofill, but, other people see how it is without autofill. You could give them a fake, you can give them scenarios. Like, let's pretend your name's Joe Smith, and this is your information, and let them complete it that way.
What was the point of that if this is an app?
So we just wanted to kind of walk through an example. Gus had offered to let us do the app, but I wanted people to kind of see where he was going, so it wasn't going to be easy to just kind of display.
No, I meant what's the
working
point
on
of
the
signing
app.
up on the website if this is an
Oh.
app? Just asking.
It's easier. It's you could it's easy. You want to be able to catch people wherever they are if they're searching on the web or using iTunes or the App Store, and so.
So what happens if you sign up on the web?
Then you get dumped into my MailChimp email newsletter database. And I'm able to send you monthly, new feature, updates and all that, and that sort of. I can't remember now. I don't think there's a way to sign up on to my newsletter with my app, which is kind of I think there should be, I suppose. But the website was designed as sort of like almost like a landing page, like a simple, like this is the first stop on the web to get my app. I felt like I needed, something simple on the web in addition to being discoverable.
So if you sign up on the web and then you download the app,
Yeah.
do you have to sign up again from the app, or can you sign in with whatever you've done on the web?
There's a registration process within the app. The website doesn't require any registration, but if you wanted to share to the community within the mobile app, you would register.
So you've got two sign-up processes.
Well, the email.
We should probably get back to
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So it's not a two sign up. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's great. We can continue this later. But Sarge had a great idea, and he suggested that people get on our Lean Startup Facebook page and do some usability testing, do some guerrilla testing this week or the following week, and post the results on there. Post questions and.
So we heard two questions you asked. Reed, can you give us other questions that are good questions to ask for usability testing?
Sure. And so if you have something that's kind of like a more developed thing, whether it's live or about ready to go live, then you got to think about what are the key tasks that your users are going to want to complete on this. And hopefully you've done that during that strategy phase. And so you put together a list of those questions, do a dry run with one of your colleagues to see how long it's going to take. And if it's taking longer than the half hour or hour long that you've set for this, then just stop. Don't worry about getting through everything. So you want to, see if they can do all the things you want them to do. I'm not sure if this website, like I haven't tested something like this, so off the top of my mind. But if it was something like a university, okay, how would you find out information on tuition for next semester? How would you apply? How would you find out what dorms you could live in, stuff like that. So you want what's going to be really important to your audience and see if they can do it on the site. Does that make sense?
Is there a standard screen size you test the users on?
No, I mean it could be, you can have your standard that you're testing in like at your office, but if you're going out and doing it on people's devices or doing it remote, then you have to be prepared to see what it's going to look like and function on different screen sizes. Yeah, I guess just be prepared for all.
Right, I was just thinking that I thought most folks probably have a 13-inch screen or less. So
Well, if you do usability testing, you go to people's desks and you see that they're using much smaller screens or the resolution is much larger, because it's interesting to see people have to scroll back and forth because your website doesn't fit if it's not responsive. So yeah, I mean, just you could have one that you would set for, but you can't guarantee that your website's always going to be viewed on that dimension. So you need to be prepared for other dimensions.
Oh, just one thing that I found helpful is usability.gov.
That's an example I was going to suggest. That's a great suggestion, usability.gov. So yeah, I was going to share some resources. Steve Krug has 2 books, but Don't Make Me Think is a really great starting point if you haven't read that yet. There's the Handbook of Usability Testing by Jeffrey Rubin and Dana Chisnell. Also, Remote Research, Real Users, Real Time, Real Research. That's a lot of reals. That's a great one if you're thinking of doing the remote testing or unmoderated testing. There's also a variety of websites. There's sensible.com. Useit.com is Jacob Nielsen's site. Usability.gov, which she recommended. Alistapart.com is just great for all things web design and development. UIE.com is, she mentioned Gerald School, that's his company. There's some great blog posts there. They have webinars, that type of stuff. And, some testing tools, if you had some money, Moray is a little bit pricey, but that is great. You can capture people's clicks on the screen. You can capture webcams, audio. Optimal Sort is a way to do, if you're thinking about how to organize your information, like your information architecture, you can have people help you group things and label them before you actually get to building your site. Usertesting.com, I think Gus said he used and had some great experience with. Loop 11. You can use GoToMeeting, Skype, any web conferencing software to do the screen sharing with people. And that's it. Any questions?
Can you talk about some of the challenges in hardware testing, especially as it relates to software?
Sure. I guess I haven't really done testing specifically for hardware, but you can. Like if you want to, if you have a physical, you're talking about using something physical and testing
so like
that?
a tactile device that somebody would interact with that also has a software component. So let's say a smartphone, what's the big one?
Yeah, I guess what you'd want to do is think of tasks that are going to test both the hardware and the software, or maybe just focus on one, but also if you're watching people live, you can take note of things. Having like a video camera set up so you can even go back later and see where they were clicking or where they were maybe touching but nothing happened, but it seems like maybe they were expecting something. If you notice that during the session, maybe follow up like, I saw, what did you expect to happen when you touched that? That's a great question to say, what would you expect? Because a lot of times people will click on something. Gus was even saying people, he could see on his task, kept pushing something that wasn't a button. So if you could ask them what they wanted to happen, then maybe you can make that adjustment and support that.
Yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, and like budget for like a website budget, and like how is there a typical figure of like how much of a percentage of a website spend should be in usability testing? Is it 1%, 5%, as much as whatever you can afford?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I don't know if Joe or Catherine can speak to. I'm not really sure.
Is this about, can you do
I have an
usability
opinion.
testing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like do it. Is it sort of like do what you can afford kind of?
Yeah,
I mean, can you afford not
it
to?
goes back to, I mean, I think Amy already said this. I think, and yeah, and it's what I said. But Steve Krug as well said, look, if even if you only spent a couple hours on user testing, and you say, look, that's all I can spend. End of story. That's better than, I think the gentleman behind me said the same thing, that's sort of better than no testing at all. So I don't know that there's a set value. I would say, for me, I mean, I just, by and large, I've sort of seen it hover somewhere around 10 to 15% of a project budget. Now, whether that's an absolute number or not, I don't know, but it certainly is worth, I'll say this, and I think you've had that experience already, it pays dividends beyond it, just about anything you could do. I mean, all those things that I talked about, all those things Karen talked about, they all have to be validated, right? We can all sit around a room and go, wow, this is really great. We know what we know, right? But until you actually put it in front of people and they do all the things that surprise the hell out of you, that's when you really start getting some valuable insight. things that are either going to cost you money or make you money or save you money down the road. You know.
I've seen around the 10% figure as well, but I would say that the percentage of your budget is not as important as knowing when to test and what to test and how to test. Like,
Yeah.
you might not need to spend
Good point.
10% of a $10 million budget is $1 million. I would argue you would never ever in a million years need to spend $1 million on usability testing.
Right.
If you can go to 5 different places and test 5 different groups of 10 people each, and you can do very, very low fidelity one-on-one testing or study people in their environment, like Amy talked about, contextual inquiry, studying people using, I think it was you or maybe it was Sarge talking about, do you test them on their own computer or do you test them, you know, on a strange computer to them? Ideally, you'd get 2 groups doing both. I'm going to study people in their environment. I'm also going to study people in a lab. But, I mean, even $1 million on usability testing, I feel like a lot of that would be wasted. It's more knowing what to test and when to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what is this not good at telling you when you're watching someone use an app or a website? What are there biases that keep coming in that you have to be aware of, or what is it not good for?
Well, it's really good for seeing people's behavior. So you can learn sometimes if the language that you're using, like what your navigation is labeled, how things are organized is supporting them. You find out a little bit of the design is supporting them. You're going to hear things like preferences. Oh, I don't like blue, or I like this or don't like that.
Right.
But that's not really the goal of this. This is more watching their behavior and learning how you can make adjustments to support them in completing tasks.
Do you run any kind of tests that don't involve watching the user?
The unmoderated,
Yeah.
I haven't. I really see the value in watching them, but I think that is a great option. I have done things like online card sorts, which I guess is similar, where, like I said, you would say, okay, these are the 10 different topics on our website, and it's just a list, and on the left you say, drag them to the right and organize them the way that makes sense to you. So that's something that's unmoderated.
I mean, in the psych world, there's a huge body of work on biases, observing people, and when someone's watching you, how.
Yeah,
so
that's true. It's not very natural to be watching people, so that unmoderated may take that out. But I guess it all goes back to, the more you do it, you will see certain things, you learn. You do realize that there are going to be some people who are going to just try to appease you, and you have to then sometimes throw that out and do another test. So you have to learn to be conscious of things like that.
I always tend to, whenever I've been exposed to it, I always tend to, you listen to what people say, okay? Listen to what people say, but trust the behavior, right? Don't discount what they're saying, but if you're going to really trust something, trust what they do rather than what they say. I think there's definitely some inherent bias in language, and the way people use it.
I also think some people don't want to shoot down your baby, so they're
Right, they might be afraid to criticize you.
They're like, oh, but it's a good idea, it has potential, and oh, I really like this feature, but then you actually, because this happened to me, I went back and I watched the video of someone using my app, and it took them way too long to do something that should have been really easy. And then they talked about, in the written response, how they thought it was they thought it was so easy to use.
And you see that all the time, yeah. So you have to trust the behavior. If it took them 20 minutes to complete something, and the other like, oh, that was really easy. Well, it shouldn't have taken them 20 minutes to do that. So that you go with that behavior, not necessarily them like, oh, it was all right.
But
you're really nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel value with the paper prototypes because it looks like a rough draft, so people are a little more willing to critique it. Because if you put your app that's out there and people are like, oh, well, I don't want them to have to change it now just because I'm having trouble. But earlier on in your process, the more likely you are going to get that constructive feedback.
We tend to not to have the designer who worked on it be the moderator.
Yeah.
So when if I'm conducting a test and it's not mine, I say right at the beginning, I didn't design this.
Yeah, that's another.
You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want the best possible product, and
Right.
that generally sort of gives them that permission to let loose.
Well,